Welcome to another edition of the Brewery Boys Expedition Podcast. I'm Ricky J. here with Max P. And Max, what do we got going on down at the tap room?
Lots of stuff going on, and of course we've been doing lots of stuff. You and I both been seeing some great live music and stuff that we can chat about. But coming up this week, got a Deep Purple band on Thursday night, so that's going to be fun. Anytime we get tribute bands in, people love to come in and check out the bands that they can't probably find on in concert anymore. So that'll be Thursday, and then Montana Neon Ridge on Friday, and then Desperate Electric on Saturday. And of course, beer-wise, we talked a little bit about the Helena Haze you and I were drinking last week when we were here,
Right.
Which is kind of a refined version of the Juicy Hazy IPA that we've had out for quite a while. It has a great following, so I want to let people know that we've already had some comments of people saying, oh my gosh, you're not going to get rid of that, are you? Well, it actually is that beer. It's just kind of a refined version. We've been tweaking the hops a little bit and also tweaking the ability to make sure we have a nice hazy beer for that style. And so we are really excited to launch it as Helena Haze. So it will be a new beer, so to speak. It's going to be a new can, new label, all that kind of stuff. But really, those people that loved that Juicy Hazy are going to love the Helena Haze. We're excited about actually doing a kind of a launch event with Visit Helena, who's a co-sponsor of that beer. And we're looking at maybe doing a hazy IPA challenge. So,
Like a taste test challenge?
yeah, have like probably the top 5 hazy IPAs from Montana. So like Dirt Church from the Bitterroot, and Bozone's got a great
Sure.
hazy, and Kettle House, and just get a bunch of them together and have people come in and do a blind test and scan a QR code and then just simply vote for their favorite. And
Gotcha.
see, we really feel like we've nailed it, and we feel like it stacks up well with the competition, and we're excited to kind of see how it would do in a blind test.
Well, I remember how nervous I was when we did some of the seltzers and we were developing some of the seltzers. And so I took at least a couple of the blind tests. And,
Yeah, it is a little nerve-wracking because you're like, man, am I tasting what I think I'm tasting? And when you get really analytical about tasting beer or seltzer, it kind of changes the dynamic. This will be a lot more like years ago when they used to have the Bud
Right.
Miller Coors, taste test when
At
you walked
head-to-head.
into a bar. That's kind of what we're looking for. A little simpler, not asking anybody to be BJCP certified judges or anything like that.
No, just from my perspective, wanting to select ours, and if it would have been beers, that would be a lot easier because obviously I know the taste of our beers well, and I love them. So seltzer, which was something fairly new to me too. So when you're, I still hoped to pick our seltzers over others, and fortunately I did, but it was a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah, speaking of seltzer, we just won a couple more awards for the seltzer from Sip Magazine.
Really?
This last week, we actually sent in a small sample of a small batch of Huckleberry seltzer, hard seltzer, and it won silver medal, I believe. And then our Tropical, which has really been our kind of flagship seltzer, the most popular one, it won another, I believe, a gold or platinum. And that'll be out in the next month or so. So when those awards come out, we'll chat a little more about them. But seltzers are still a deal, still a thing. There's still a crowd of people that are drinking them, and we're still making them. We actually make them in a slushy right now, probably for another, I don't know, as long as it stays above 70 for
Right.
a little while. So we have a couple different flavors of seltzer slushies on tap, and that's been super popular this summer.
Yeah, like that pedal cart we talked about last time. It doesn't work with snow tires, and so slushies don't really work a lot of times when it's freezing out.
for
There's
sure.
something about it. But yeah, and
And the Mexican lager is, I think we mentioned, maybe we chatted about some of the beers a couple of podcasts ago, but that's one that really seems to hit a chord with people. We had that out for about 90 days, and it outsold most all of our beers all the time. It just was a great selling beer, and people really look for something a little more approachable, lighter, and we really feel like this is really hitting all of those key factors that people are looking for in today's craft beer. So we're excited to have it out full time.
Right, and that's what we're having tonight. So cheers.
Cheers to the Mexican lager.
Yes. And
Oh, by the way, also this week, forgot to mention, after a nice cold sip of the Mexican lager. And by the way, the Mexican lager will be on tap at Ales for Trails this week, which I haven't even tried to rope you into for Friday night. But that's always a great brew festival here in town. A great cause, raising money for the trail system. They also have some great VIP food and stuff like that in the afternoon. So I'll be setting that up Friday afternoon. And we've got the Mexican lager, and I believe we have the Helena Haze, and then our flagships, Miners and Prickly, will be on tap there as well.
nice. What brewery news? Anything?
Brewery news outside of the festival season kind of winding down. We just had our last big festival last weekend with the Wake the Giant Festival, and then the Rendezvous, the beer festival here in town. We got another one coming up for the Montana Brewers Association in Missoula coming up at the end of the month. It's always a really solid one at Karis Park over there. And other than that, we're chugging along. I guess the big news is we're moving into Wyoming. So if we got any listeners in Wyoming, look out for the beer. I'm heading down there next week, and I'm starting in Cody, and then actually driving all the way to Cheyenne for the next day, and then back to Casper, and then we'll finish up in Sheridan, Wyoming. So making the rounds. Kind of getting the information out to the sales teams out there about what beers we carry, because we've been in Cody, which is right outside the park there.
Right.
But we hadn't really been in the rest of Wyoming, so we're really looking to build out the rest of Wyoming over the next 2 or 3 months here.
I know there's some people in Nebraska that are getting excited that we're getting closer.
We're getting closer. Yeah.
Little by little, baby steps.
Yep, exactly. So filling out and growing organically as it makes sense, and just seeing where the market's going to take us. But we're excited to meet a bunch of new people down there. And there's not a ton of Montana beers in the Wyoming market. So we're excited to have another alternative, or at least the neighbor to the north beer for the Wyoming folks. So that'll be good.
Well, Max, I think everyone knows we're huge fans of live music, and we're supporting it here. And we had some news, unfortunately, some deaths in the live music with Jimmy Buffett passing, and also someone who's played at our establishment, Steve Harwell, with Smash Mouth. And so we've got a video that you pulled up.
Let's show a little video. That was actually still to this day probably one of our top 10 shows at the brewery.
It was so much fun.
Just, a really good, solid crowd. That's back when we used to build the stage out right in front of the new brewery, closed down the street, and I think we probably had somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 people there that night. Go ahead and hit play. Let's see this. This goes pretty crazy here, but
Thank you guys for coming out tonight. We love you.
that was a great show.
It sure was.
We had a bunch of bands that weekend, but they certainly were the headliner and put on a great show. Great crowd. And
I'll tell you a little story.
he was a young guy, being basically the same age as we are, right around that same age. And so it's always a bummer to see someone that, really still has a lot of life yet to live. But I can tell you that guy, he enjoyed life, and he went pretty much full throttle.
Yeah.
And I guess if you have to look back at life, so many songs and lyrics and things that kind of point to that, but kind of sometimes better to burn brightly and have a great time and make an impact. And he certainly did that, and the band certainly did that. They've got a lot of great music out there, and the band's still going. He had actually pulled away from the band, I believe, maybe about a year and a half ago, not long after the show at the brewery, actually. So having some other issues in his life, but it's a bummer. Anytime
it is sad. I mean, just 56 years old.
Yeah.
And, fortunately, a liver failure. I mean, that's no secret. And it's just sad to lose someone so talented at that age.
Absolutely. And, it just makes people, I think, appreciate the fact that some of these folks that you've been wanting to see for a long time, get out and see them. If you got to plan a trip somewhere, especially, he was a pretty young guy comparatively, but if you've been following bands that are in their 70s and 80s and they're doing a run,
right,
it'd be a good time to get out and see them and cross that one off the bucket list, because they are starting to disappear on a pretty regular rate.
Well, I think here's to Steve, and may he rest in peace.
Cheers.
Now you got to see a little live music. And had a trip.
Had a nice vacay at the end of summer after all the events are wound down, and flew out on Monday to Minnesota. Spent about 5 days there in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and the first show I went and seen was Alter Bridge. Of course, Miles Kennedy, lead singer of Alter Bridge, and of course he plays with Slash in another band, and has his own solo. He came through. It was back in 2018. I was actually digging through and found some pictures and video of that as well. That was back before we took the wall out, so he's crammed onto our little tiny stage. And I remember sending a video to folks that are in the Snapchat circle I belong to and some other social media, that I remember never seeing so many people there so early as I did that night. It was like an hour before the show and you couldn't move in there. So he put on a great show at the Fillmore in Minneapolis with Alter Bridge. And obviously a lot of classic Alter Bridge hits and their whole fan base there. But he also did a couple solo stuff, and just incredible musician and incredible vocalist. You think about this last week, I seen two of my, I would say, top 10 vocalists, being Miles Kennedy, and then we were fortunate enough to see Eddie Vedder with Pearl Jam on Thursday night. And even though the intensity gets loud and the music and the instruments get loud, both of those guys have voices that can just kind of cut through all of that. And that's rare. There's a lot of people with good voices, but it's got to be perfectly balanced or it just kind of gets mushy.
Right.
And that's not the case, especially with Miles. That guy's voice can just pierce anything. And so we had a great time at the Alter Bridge show, and then Wednesday, since we had a down day, we had a concert on Thursday, went to the Minnesota State Fair, which has the record for the most edible items on a stick in any county, any fair. And
what was the most unique item on a stick for you to eat? Like a grasshopper?
Probably walleye. I didn't even know they could get walleye on a stick, but they did. So walleye.
Yeah, because a lot of times it just kind of falls. It's so flaky, Yeah. That's impressive.
That was one of my favorites, and the corn on the cob there. Anytime you can get that fresh corn on the cob is just so good.
I love corn on the cob.
I think I ate way too much of that. And then just, it's the fall season, so you got all of their vegetables and produce and things coming out. And, of course, in the competition, you go through and look at all the stuff. And they had a big section for the Minnesota Brewers Association, and you could actually sample flights of 4 beers at a time. And so we did some of that, and then ate some fresh apples and all sorts of great stuff there. So it was a really, really fun time. And that place, the lowest day was 106,000 people. The biggest day was 205. So they've really figured out how to move that many people around in a large area. It's basically like streets that are closed and you're just moving through, and just they put on a great event. Matter of fact, last year when we went, we actually seen a couple of concerts there as well. This year we had other concerts planned, but then that led up to Thursday, and we got up Thursday and it was pretty much all about Pearl Jam. So we went down at noon. They have a merch booth or a merch trailer that opens up. And I thought, well, we're already going down there to grab lunch anyway, so let's just see. I doubt there's anybody in line. We got there, and the line, Rick, was unbelievable. It was
really
like down a block, over a block, down a block, And
Holy
I
cow.
thought, my gosh, are these people just waiting to buy stuff? And sure enough, they were. And the reason why they were waiting is they have some kind of cool commemorative stuff. Pearl Jam does a good job, I think, of like trying to localize their shows. So like here's one of the
flip it,
the stickers, also the back of my shirt that I'm wearing. It's got the hockey mask and the two sticks that are guitars.
And so the connection to hockey is just because Minnesota's connection to hockey,
but
right?
I went and looked and happened to look on eBay to see what they were going for because I got one of the most coveted items, which is the hockey jersey, the Pearl Jam hockey jersey.
Nice.
And those sold out really quickly and are already going for about $300 or $400 on eBay. And then the license plate, which is kind of cool. And I think they're doing these for all the shows. And when I looked on eBay, there was quite a few shows that they were doing the hockey jersey. If the town had a hockey team, put it that way, and probably more in the north, than so much in the south. But I think whoever's doing their merch and planning out their graphics and all that, because they've been known for posters for years and years. I mean, some of the most collectible posters, because every show has its own poster, and it's an original piece of art, and then, of course, lithographed. And, probably going back to 5-6 years ago, first time I seen them in Missoula, they had a poster, and I got that one. And then a couple of years ago, the one when they were in Missoula, got another poster, and it's got some cool Missoula stuff in it. And so they really localize it, and that makes it super popular and super collectible and all that kind of stuff. So that was fun. We ended up getting some good merch, and then we went to a really cool hockey bar there called Tom Reed's, and then went back for the show. And they put on I've seen Pearl Jam, probably 8-9 times, and seen Eddie Vedder himself several times, but it was definitely my favorite show. There's something special, I think, about bands that are on tour when it's the first night or the last night of the tour. And you'll hear
a little more energy, maybe a little more excitement,
like almost nervous energy when it's the first night.
Yeah.
And excited at the end because they're almost done after a long tour. But this is not that long of a tour anyway. I think they're doing seven concerts in 5 cities, and that's it for the entire year.
Oh, wow.
In the U.S. anyway. So there was definitely a lot of people we met in the line that are going to all 7 shows.
Yeah,
they're going to.
They have a pretty solid following.
They go to Chicago. Then they're going to go.
What do they call their club? What do they?
The 10 Club. The 10 Club from the 10 album, and it's kind of interesting. I mean, once you get into a band and you dive down that rabbit hole, just like the Grateful Dead and a lot of bands that have a lot of history and a lot of fan base that are super passionate, you start learning all sorts of factoids about where they came up with names and things like that. So we even learned some new facts when we were there. It was kind of fun. But one of the things that they did that I thought was really unique is, first of all, they don't do flames and explosions and massive light show.
Right.
It's pretty much about the music. And it's the most speakers I've ever seen in the XL Energy Center, which is where they play hockey. The Minnesota Wild plays there. And they had just so many line arrays pointing in almost every corner you could think of. There just was not a bad sounding seat in the house, even incredibly behind the stage. So this video that I brought, that if you want to pull up here and put up, I thought this was super cool. I'd never seen a band do this. This was during the encore of about a 45-minute encore. But they came out and they actually all walked to the back of the stage because they had sold seats behind the stage, which when I first looked at it, I thought, who would ever buy a ticket? Well, all the rest of them were sold out and people wanted to be there. So they watched the back of the band the entire night until this happened.
Okay, here we go. You ready?
Really cool moment. You bet. So they turned on the lights.
Wow.
Of the back 2 tiers. You can see this is the front of the stage.
Yeah.
And those people thought, wow, we are going to have crappy seats for the whole show. And then all of a sudden realized, wow.
It's another drum kit he's just on.
Yeah. You see all those line array speakers there.
Yeah. Wow. That's truly a band that wants everyone to feel connected and enjoy
the experience. Yeah, it truly did. A lot of kind of neat connections too. I mean, he stopped several times and talked about some, a lot of the people that have left us, like we talked about just a few minutes ago. And he talked about, Tom Petty, and he talked about Prince. And so it was a really cool kind of a moving night. And to be honest with you, you and I go to a lot of shows, a lot more shows than probably the average person does. And it's rare nowadays to have a band play more than 90 minutes. And I get it. I mean, they're doing it every night. And, that's what they get hired to do. But these guys went over 2.5 hours. And it was just like,
wow.
Oh, my gosh, it was song after song after
Well, maybe
song.
that's a good thing to do. You limit the number of shows so you can put more energy into it. And maybe you get to a point that you've made it, you can kind of tell that label, no, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And really focus on the fans a little more than trying to make money for your label.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about people waiting in line 6 hours to buy merch, they got plenty of money. I mean, they're making plenty of dough off of
No doubt.
all of the aspects of it, but it is really cool to see that. I mean, it was also the first show I'd been to, Rick, that Ticketmaster, and if you remember, Pearl Jam and Ticketmaster have a very sordid past, and there was several years where they didn't want to use Ticketmaster, and it was like a big deal. And now this was the first show I'd been to that even if you bought a ticket to Pearl Jam, which was not easy, you had to go into the lottery and all that kind of stuff and get an opportunity like Taylor Swift kind of thing to get a ticket. But if you wanted to resell that, you cannot resell that unless you sell it back through Ticketmaster at the same exact price.
I like
no
that.
No fees, no nothing.
Get your money back, but then someone else. You don't have to worry. Even at the brewery, you got all these fakes coming out, all the scams.
They're like, oh, I got extra tickets, and we didn't even sell tickets to that. We don't have extra tickets.
Oh, man. And they're probably sitting in Nigeria, but hey, opportunity. The internet has created opportunity for everyone.
Yeah. So I know you've been going up to Great Falls more and checking out the Newberry and some of the stuff going on up there. What did you see up there?
Well, last night I saw Easton Corbin, and I didn't do a deep dive before, but I was blown away by the number of songs and that I knew that I heard him play. Phenomenal, I would say, more traditional country, and songs like "Roll with It" and a little more country than that. And there are several that as soon as he started playing them, I'm like, oh, God, I know that. I know that one. I know that one. I know that. Phenomenal show. And one of the coolest things they did, I've never seen this before, when they introduced their band members. Like the bass player hands over his bass to the lead singer. So he starts playing bass. He grabs a beer. He's drinking a beer. And he breaks into a song. Each one of them did a little song. That
on
was
their instrument or another instrument?
No, they sang a little.
Oh, they sang.
But it was a cover. So it'd be a little section of a cover and that the crowd knew very well. And the crowd just went wild.
That is cool. That's something that I think you and I have both commented a lot on. It's great to see a band that is comfortable enough with their own music that they do like to play other music too.
And I like the way that he did it too. He said, "Hey, there's people that led the way in country music, and they did like little segments of 2 or 3 artist songs. Not their whole song, but covered sections of it. And again, the crowd went wild for it.
Nice.
They just loved it. So I got a little, just a little bit of one of his songs, but."
Nice. Yeah. Looks like a good crowd. They're having a great time. It reminds me of, kind of reminds me a little bit of that guy we've had at the brewery. I think it was not this last block party, but maybe the one, maybe it was a couple of block parties ago. Kyle Park, remember him?
Oh, yeah.
He's got
Yeah.
the upside down crown, upside down song.
Oh yeah,
and-
yeah. I remember.
But that kind of his voice is kind of similar to that.
Yeah,
so.
just that in traditional country. But heading up, you can tell it's not a huge venue, and heading up Friday to see Clint Black.
Oh wow, that's
So super excited to see
That
him.
should be packed, I would
Oh,
think.
it'll be it is sold out.
Okay.
Again, got tickets on the secondary market, so hopefully
They're
real.
They're real?
Yeah, they're real tickets.
paid
But
$1,200
yeah,
for them.
but to be able to see him the only other time I believe I saw Clint Black was at a fair and rodeo. So
Oh yeah.
Maybe 3,000, I don't know, people. So, but a huge place, and now this will be really intimate.
Yeah,
so,
much more intimate.
yeah,
That's
so I'm
really
looking
cool.
forward to that. And then we have a
Big show Sunday.
coming up Sunday.
Yeah.
Blackberry Smoke,
I'm
baby.
probably looking forward to that one. I'd say top 5 this year for me because you and I both really fell into Blackberry Smoke pretty deep. I think we've listened to them quite a bit. I know when we
Yeah.
were down at Braun Brothers, we were listening to a lot of their music, and we've just, we both, I know you've learned a couple of the songs, and
Yeah.
I would love to pick up a couple of those songs when we start going out and starting
Right.
to play a little bit. They just have a really cool vibe to them, and I think they're definitely one of those, I guess you'd call them outlaw or alternative country bands that is almost, to me, a little bit more like Tom Petty way back in the
Right.
day, Southern rock kind of stuff. And
It's like Whiskey Myers is a little more rocky. I love it too, but it's a little more rocky. And Blackberry Smoke is somewhere between. It's in my opinion, a little more traditional country, but somewhere between that and like the rockiness of Whiskey Myers.
Yep.
I love their sound.
yeah, and a little bit of that, like 38 Special and some of those Southern,
Right.
Leonard Skinner. They
Yeah.
have some of that kind of tone and vibe to their music. So I'm super stoked. I've never seen them live before. I think
I know.
it's your first time too.
Yeah,
right?
it's going to be awesome.
So yeah, we're really stoked. We've been trying to get them up here for quite a while, and I know we just about had them for the Bob Marshall a couple of years ago, and something happened. I think it was actually the year of COVID.
Yeah.
But hopefully we'll make that happen in the future. But I'm super stoked to see them Sunday night.
Yeah, me too. Well, what else we got going on?
Oh gosh, what else? Well, we're getting ready to do the Wyoming thing, and then just kind of lining things out for the winter. You and I have been working on booking some bands in to fill up some of the local spots that we have on the calendar, and then trying to get a couple of the regional and a couple of national acts booked into the fall and winter months. It's a little tougher to get some of those folks, especially out of Texas, to come up here and brave the snow in the tour bus, but there's definitely a lot of regional stuff moving through. We got Laney Lou and the Bird Dogs coming back through, and we've got
We got to focus on some Canadian groups that they don't
they're
mind the
used
snow.
to that cold weather, right?
Yeah.
And we're looking to do a couple of fun things in the tap room. We had talked about for a long time, but we're finally going to pull the trigger and get it done now. Doing a program up in the power room, probably on a Monday night or a Tuesday night called Deep Grooves, where we bring in a vinyl system, a really nice stereo, and just let people hear some great vinyl in case they don't have that opportunity at home, and probably even set it up to where over time allow people to vote on what we should listen to that night and listen to the
That's
backside
really
of an
neat, yeah.
album. So that'll be a fun kind of little bit of an escape. And then we're still looking forward to getting some pinball tournaments going in the game room. That's still doing really well, been super popular, and really helped out those slow days. There's something to do now all the time.
Well, has there been anything new on the artist that might be coming through more in a solo fashion, where we're doing a little more of an intimate opportunity to get them away from their band?
I think we should be able to have an announcement. I would say probably about a month from now, and it would start.
That's great.
It would start in November, and then it would be just November, and then probably skip the holiday month, December, and then January, February, March, to do kind of a really cool singer-songwriter solo acoustic. But these will be people that everybody's heard of that just happen to be traveling through. And that's one nice thing about traveling solo without all that equipment and all the band members and the drums and everything, is they can fly in and fly out if they need to. So hopefully we'll be able to get some more details on that in the next 30 days. We're working on a partnership with some other folks to make that happen.
The uniqueness of shows like that is you get an opportunity to actually let the artist talk about why he created that song and what that song means to them. And it may mean something totally different to you, know, when you've heard it.
And the opportunity just to engage them individually, even after the show. I mean, even it's kind of interesting when you and I have talked about before about how where do people get their information? Because you try to reach people on all these different channels, whether it be social media or billboards or radio ads or whatever. And I was just golfing with somebody right before I had left. I had fortunate enough to golf 4 days in a row, which was awesome. It was the most golf I played this year. Did Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday, and then we flew out Monday. But on one of those golf outings, one of the guys that I was playing with, we were talking about music. He said, "Oh, who you had come through?" And I mean, well, a couple of weeks ago we had Pat Travers, and he said, "Are you kidding me? He's like my all-time favorite. I mean, I have all the albums."
No way.
When was it? And I told him, he goes, "Wow, how come I didn't know about that?" I said, "I don't know, man. Where do you get your information?" Because
seriously, because we want to reach people like that.
Yeah. But the crazy thing was, you never know who is really taken back by somebody, and you never know who's into somebody at a level that, we knew who he was. We've heard the big hits, but I mean, it's not like I owned every album and the cool thing was after the show, there was some people that hung around and wanted to meet Pat. And, a lot of times when they finish up, they do need a few minutes to kind of chill. And he's a smoker, so he like to grab a cigarette. And then he said, "Don't worry, I'll come out and say hello to everybody." And he came out and signed albums and shirts and hats and just hung around until the last person was ready to go. So that's the advantage, I think, of if you get an opportunity to see someone in a smaller venue. And now I see more and more why people travel to see their favorite. Because, you can wait to see them at somewhere near you, but if it's not that great of a venue, or it's a stadium, or it's, it might be worth taking a look at their tour schedule and saying, "Hey, let's make a trip up to Calgary, or let's get a cheap flight over to Vegas or whatever, and check out something new." And I'm jealous, actually. One of our friends, Randy, he's going to that first concert at that new Sphere in Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to the U2 show there. And I think they're running about a month down there or something. But that would be one I think that's going to be a mind blower. The visual and the sound.
Well, because they're doing a special video and all that stuff just for the capabilities of that Sphere.
Yeah, I actually created a whole studio in Burbank just for creating content for that because it's so unique. It's roughly 360 degrees of these LED panels, both inside and outside. So it's going to be a pretty amazing experience. So we'll have to catch some show down there in the future, I'm sure.
Yeah, that would be a blast to catch. Well, just to see the technology.
Yeah,
I mean, just that's always of interest. Whatever, something new, and as long as they make it, and I'm sure they will, enhance the music versus distract from the music, and I'm sure they will. I'm sure the artist will not, let it go on.
Let it become the show.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas I'm sure there's some shows that will be more about the display, like different styles of music like EDM and some of the stuff that just tends to be more dance.
Well, could you imagine a Pink Floyd show?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Whoa.
Talk about, put lasers to shame.
Yeah.
I mean, that will be a full experience.
Or you go, a George Strait show where he's like, "No, I just stand here and sing." And, and he kills it. He fucking rocks it.
That was one of the unique things about Pearl Jam too. Is no explosions, no flames, no heavy, no lasers. I mean, it was basically
it just sounds great.
Yeah, just good sound, and they had lights, and they could turn on all the lights when they needed to, and you could see everything, and they made an impact, but it was less than 5% of the impact that the music had.
Right.
So very cool show.
That's awesome. Well, I don't have a lot else this week. Might be a little shorter episode.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess to tie into your other podcasts, I mean, I was in Minnesota, but it was the same night as the Pearl Jam show. Or
Right.
I might have went over and watched the Gopher game.
Right.
But,
that was a rough one for my Huskers.
and there was some good games this weekend. Those a couple of upsets, and Duke was a crazy surprise to me. I didn't even know they played football.
Yeah. What do they use a football
I
or a
know they play
basketball?
basketball,
Yeah, they use a
but-
football or basketball. Yet, obviously, Deion Sanders had his debut against the number 17th ranked team TCU.
Oh, that was incredible.
They were the runner-up last year for national. Obviously, finished second, and had a fantastic outing. God, I think he brought in like 60 some new players when he came.
Wow.
But I really like his attitude. I like the way he talks about players. I like the way he gives thanks to God. You know, I mean, obviously, as a defensive back in the NFL and throughout his career, you have to have, you have to have that attitude that no one can beat me, right? So maybe there's been people turned off by him in his career.
Yeah, I mean,
whatever.
he was definitely confident.
Yeah, I mean, how can you, as a defensive back, you're always reacting to the receiver. The receiver knows what route they're going to run. So as a defensive back, you better have that confidence and that cockiness.
Yeah.
Or, you can't be like, no, you go. No, you go. You got to be like, no, I'm going to crush you.
I caught a little bit. I don't know if you watched his press conference. I caught a little bit of that in the hot tub the other night, and I was impressed by how he would put some of the press on the spot. So they would ask a question, and then he said to the guy, he said, "Oh no, you're the one that said," and he basically
I've read your stuff.
Yeah.
You didn't believe.
You didn't believe.
You didn't
did
believe. You didn't believe.
You still don't believe, do you?
So obviously now
Now you
Nebraska
gotta go into
goes
that house
to Colorado. There's a huge history from the Big 8 to the Big 12, with Colorado. And Nebraska, again, another year, loses a 3-point game as time expires on the clock.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you're a Minnesota fan, watching the game, trying to step back from it. There's no way Nebraska should have lost that game, but they found a way to lose it.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. I mean, there's a couple things. I do podcast Husker fans in Montana with a couple other buddies, and I love Coach Rule. I love what he's doing. It's his first year. I like the energy he brings. I like his attitude. I like the things he says. But they make too much money not to be able to question him, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things is like when Sims has the most interceptions of any active quarterback that has started 15 games or more. So when the Big Ten media folks came to Nebraska and brought that stat up, Coach Rule responded by saying, "Oh, I hadn't heard that." So I went back and looked at all the film, and a lot of that was not on him. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of a red flag. What do you mean? You recruited him and brought him in to be your quarterback. And are you telling me someone didn't bring up to you that he had this issue?
Yeah.
And
It's
then
like
he
having a
throws
fumbler.
3 interceptions. Oh, now let's step. So that's point one. I would rather have had him say, I knew about this. I researched it before we brought him in.
Talked about
and those
it.
things were not his fault. And frankly, I hope he gets better. He's a mountain of a young man. I mean, he just amazingly athletic, unbelievable runner. And he has a strong arm and he's accurate. But what he doesn't seem to be able to do is read defensive coverages. So I can throw an extremely accurate pass to you, and if I can't see the guy that's going to step in front of us and intercept it, it doesn't help.
Yeah.
And that seems to be his issue. So all of the interceptions,
awareness about what's going on.
Yeah, all the interceptions were on him. And the other part, with Coach Rule is about 3 weeks ago, about 2 weeks into fall camp, what many of us thought would be the starting running back, Anthony Grant, had almost 1,000 yards, over 900 yards last season. And he said he's got a fumbling issue. So in the drive and actually said he can't play for us if he's got a fumbling issue. Well, he got more carries than the number one back, and he's in at a crucial moment in the game when all Nebraska's ahead by 10 points. All he got to do is just run the ball.
Run it out. Yeah.
And what does he do? He has a decent run, but he fumbles.
Yep.
And it's like, dude, another red flag coaching decision is how could you call a guy out on something? And I know you got to play him. I know you got to develop his confidence. I know you got to, but maybe not in what would be the drive that puts away the game.
Yeah.
Maybe you give your number one running back
your best ball handler.
control guy, and run that clock down, man.
Yeah.
You are 10 points ahead.
I think there was there some controversy about right before the first half too, a call. I don't know if they went for it on fourth and they could have got a field goal, or there was some.
They went for it and they could have taken the 3 points, and so people are looking at it.
But
at the end of the day, the coaches, they're the ones with the most information, and so I would never say they made the wrong call or you shouldn't have had him in the game. But based on what I know, and I know because it's what you told us, I question your logic, and I really question not fully. I don't know if I believe it. I don't understand how you would recruit a quarterback to come in, take over your program that you want to develop, and you don't know everything about him.
Yeah.
So those are the couple things. And now, sort of the negative, though, I like to look at opportunity. So Nebraska now has a huge opportunity because it's Deion Sanders. This game has a national interest.
Matter of fact, I didn't even look. Is it already changed?
Oh yeah, the line has already changed. Colorado was way down, and they flipped and they're up. I don't know how many points.
Is it prime time game or is it just morning game? Or?
It's what's probably good for Nebraska a little bit is it's a 10 a.m. Mountain Time game.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's sort of the Fox first game, and the Fox channel scored because they went all in on Deion's first game. They got it.
Oh yeah.
And now he upset TCU in a great performance.
Huge
and now
ratings.
this one, huge ratings. And so, unfortunately for Nebraska and Matt Rule, if they don't go in and perform very well and win, then you're going to have a fan base will probably jump way too fast to the comparison and say, we were hiring a coach last year. Why didn't we even at least consider Deion?
Yeah.
And
because the guy exudes confidence, and he gets everybody around him to believe that they're going to do something special. And it's amazing to see. We've seen it in basketball for years, people beating other people that have no business beating them. But as a team, if you're all very cohesive and pulling in the same direction, it's amazing what can happen on any given day.
Well, in addition, you've got all of these NFL players that he's played with on his different teams that he's played, and they're tweeting about it, and they're sending him congratulations. And so the hype, let's say their kids want to go play football. Well, there's a good chance they may go play for Deion.
Yeah.
So it just puts a level of professionalism out there that may be hard to accomplish in another manner.
For sure. And speaking of football, both Montana teams won this weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
I happened to be at the Bobcat game.
Yeah, that was
Utah Tech. It was great game. I mean, they just destroyed them. But
was it a gold out? Is that
Gold Rush?
Rush.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's like the first game. Everybody wears yellow, and the stadium was packed with yellow, and had a little flyover. It was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so in that, we almost need you to call in and give the MSU perspective of what's going on, because we got Carl.
Yeah.
Who
Oh, by the way, we have kind of a cool thing next weekend at the brewery.
Oh yeah.
We're doing the game because they're away. So we're doing the MSU game outside on the big digital screen. So we're pulling our big digital billboard over at the end of the yard. Actually pulled it over tonight. And we'll get it fired up. And we may even have an Xbox show up there with a little Madden. Some folks want to come down and play on the big screen outside. But we're inviting people to come down, tailgate, of course, on our property. It's got to be our alcohol. But you can bring food and open up the back of the truck and watch the game from your parking spot
That's
right there,
awesome.
and we're looking forward to a great fall football day.
What time does that kick off?
Let's see, 4:00.
4:00.
I think is the MSU game, and then actually, I better double check that. I think the Grizz play as well, and they start after. So I think it's 4:00 Bobcats and like 7:00 Grizz, something like that.
Wow, and you're going to play both of them?
Yeah, we are. We do have a band that night, and we're going to put the band inside, so we'll still have the games out on.
Yeah,
the
it's
patio.
gotten a little cool.
Yeah, it's starting to cool down, and of course, a lot
And
of
rainy.
rain.
Yeah,
the last
rain.
couple days. So yeah,
Well,
fall is in the air.
It is. It is. Well, anything else, Max?
I don't think so. I think that's pretty much wraps up the week. Looking forward to getting together next week and talking about what's coming up.
All right. Well, we will wrap up our second episode of the Brewery Boys Expedition, and I would say to everyone, cheers.
Yeah. Cheers. See you next time.